Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. It is Chris, aka Starrapter, joined by Milton, joined by Ben. We are back with the full crew this week because we have a lot to discuss. We are doing our official Andor preview episode, going over a lot of the things that came out on Disney Plus Day with that awesome special look. Plus, we'll be looking at some recent rumors, a little bit of an update on Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, and so much more. How are you guys doing? It's been 2 weeks. I'll start off with Milton. What have you been up to? How's everything, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just getting back into routine. I'm getting back into the podcast. As you said, it's been what I think I've been gone for about a week. Um, yeah. So I had fantasy football draft last Friday because it is football season officially starting yesterday. But sometimes life takes me away from the podcast, but it don't mean that Star Wars is from my face or from my mind. I'm usually watching something or something related to Star Wars. So, and I will get into that with our week of Star Wars, but I'm glad to be back. Excited for the podcast, so let's get into it.
Heck yeah. What about you, Ben? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, actually, this week was my birthday week. On September 6th was my birthday. Turned the big 29, so I'm still hanging on in my 20s. So it's been a good week. Just hung out with family, watched football this week, of course. Had some good food. Got my workouts in. Just the kind of normal day-to-day stuff. Didn't do anything too crazy for my birthday other than just the normal visiting with some relatives and stuff. But that's about it.
Yeah, so happy belated birthday to you. Oh, man. Still not even in your 30s yet. Oh, my gosh.
Yep, hanging on.
Man, oh, man. Yeah, so we
No,
had
it's
the
funny.
big,
Actually, speaking of birthdays and stuff, my grandma. So I saw my grandma after work today, and she's 80, and so we were over there talking, and she was like, we're just talking about aging and just getting older, and she's like, looks at me, she's like, Milton, she's like, you just turned 40, right? I was like, no, you de-aged me by 5 years. I'm 35 years old. She's like, oh my God. She's like, I didn't even realize it. And I was like, all right, this needs to stop. 40. No, 35.
Oh, man.
Hell, I don't even look 35, so let's go. Black don't crack. So
there you go. Oh, man. So you guys have been away. Milton, as you said off the top, you might be away from the podcast, but you're not away from Star Wars. So let us know. Let the listeners, let the viewers know what's been in the forefront of your Star Wars viewing and thinking and everything else.
So last week or so, I think the last 2 weeks, I found this guy on YouTube. He reviews like books, a lot of canon or legends actually. And I think I was listening to this guy talk about the last or the new Jedi Order books, the Legacy of the Force books. Those are some of my favorite EU books of all time. And he's been just breaking these down. Now he's done this for years now. I just discovered him. But usually when I go to bed now, I usually put something on with him and listen to him talk about like the book reviews. Because again, a lot of times I'm listening to those old EU books. So lately I've been on that train when I go to sleep. I'll throw on like one of his short reviews, listen to it, and fall asleep. But yeah, I enjoy Star Wars fans and like reviewing these books. And they're not like huge YouTubers. They're not like, the Harloffs or the Campias. Yeah, they can do that and get their fan base about it. But it's nice to see people like us get on the YouTube who had the opportunity just to talk about it and just say, hey, this is how I felt about a book or about an episode or whatever. So it's just honestly supporting that, but also just seeing other people's perspective. Like it was really nice to hear his thoughts on how these books were written back in the early 2000s or 90s. So yeah, it was nice.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of you when it comes to Legends, but yeah, it is nice to just put on something like that in the background. Like I do that at the gym a lot. I know it's probably a bad habit, honestly, because like people are like, huh, how you working out? Like when you're listening to podcasts, doesn't it slow you down? I'm like, honestly, sometimes it might.
No.
So so I've been trying to get out of that a little bit.
Because I listen to audiobooks while I work out sometimes, and then depending on if I'm really into one, but like, you have the capability to rewind it on your iPhone or your iPod. So especially if I know the story, like I know how it's going to play out, so it doesn't affect my workouts. Now there might be things that I've missed before, like when I listened to Revenge of the Sith audiobook. There's so many things in depth about that book that I'm thinking, oh wait, I didn't realize that was in the book. I may have to re-listen to it for like another like
Oh.
10 seconds. I'll rewind it, but it doesn't affect my workouts because it's like I'm listening to a movie,
Hmm.
So
What about you, Ben? You want to chime in on this discussion here? Do you ever listen to a Star Wars audiobook or podcast while you're lifting?
Yeah, I mean, for me, normally I'll listen to like audiobooks. I'll listen to different Star Wars audiobooks or podcasts. Like like Milton said, just finding content creators who are maybe smaller or
yeah,
things like that. Like there's a really good for anybody who likes Legends. They mainly just cover Legends. It's a couple, and they do Legend reviews like that too. Milton, like they literally are just going through all their videos. They just talk 10-20 minutes about a random
right,
piece of Legends content. It's this guy and girl. Like they said, pretty much, they're not the biggest fans of a lot of the stuff with Disney, and they like released a video talking about it. And we're like, hey, like it's totally fine. Like some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff isn't for us, and we're cool with it, and we're content. We're not going to bash it. Like so, we're just going to talk about the stuff we enjoy, and all they do is just cover Legends stuff, and it's pretty cool. They only have like 600-700 subscribers, but it's just cool seeing
Oh.
people like that just putting more of like passion projects
Yep.
and just talking about what they like.
Yeah, so for my week in Star Wars, I dived into Legends. Ben, you were kind of shocked, like, oh my gosh, he's reading a Legend story. So I don't have it with me. I think I showed it off a few weeks ago. It's a Star Wars. It's like stories pulled from the magazine, the Star Wars Insider, and there's half of it is canon stories, which I hadn't read, which I wanted to see. I'm a damn completionist. We all know that. When it comes to the canon, I'm like, even if
right.
it's a damn Insider magazine, I gotta see what it is. So I got that, but there's also legend stories in the forefront of that book. There was a couple stories based off the Old Republic, which are really cool. One of them was about Malgus, and it actually had his original name and about how he was like going through. His father was like a very rich Corellian. I believe he was from Corellia or some other planet, but the father was giving Malgus lessons with this zoo and these different creatures that were very vicious and stuff that ultimately paid off in him joining like the Sith and all that kind of thing. And then there was another one, Jason Malcolm. But there was one that I was showing you guys because they have beautiful artwork that's, I think, done just for the specific book based off the stories. All different artists involved, many different good artists. And one of them was about, I think this relates to you. Again, I am clueless when it comes to what book series these are from, but one of them was about the daughter of Leia. What is it, Jaina Solo? What is it?
Yeah, Jaina Solo.
Okay. Oh, Jaina, like the character from World of Warcraft. Jaina Solo. Oh, I'll never
Yeah,
forget
Jaina
that now.
Solo.
Okay, because it has her
Yep.
with the wife of Jason Solo. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so Jason had a secret wife. Pretty much Jason echoes Anakin Skywalker,
Hmm.
a path where he has a secret wife. I believe her name was oh God,
It's a
she was a Jedi
unique
too.
name.
What was her
Yes.
name? Chris or Ben? What was
Something
her
with
name? It
a
was like Alana. No,
T.
Alana's the daughter.
Yeah, Alana's the daughter. She was in there as
I forget.
well.
I forget the wife's names, but yeah, she used to be a Jedi. I think she became like a politician again or something. Jason wound up getting with her. Then they had a secret child.
Exactly. And anyway, it's pretty cool because the story is like they go down to this forest moon, and apparently Alana, I don't know in the books if they mentioned she has like a Nexu pet. Was that in the
Yeah,
books?
something like that.
She has
Something
a
like
pet
that. Yeah.
Nexu, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna let the Nexu stretch its legs. We're gonna bring it out to this place and let it kind of go out on its own and hunt some things." And of course, there's poachers there, and there's some lightsaber action with Jaina and with this other character, and it's pretty badass because her lightsaber, I believe it's a purple lightsaber with like the hilt is literally the tooth of a Rancor, and there's something about she was on Dathomir or from Dathomir or something of that nature, but it's pretty cool. And like I seen too bad I couldn't just like throw the images in here as we're talking about it. But I enjoyed it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it's
Oh
it's,
yeah,
it's
like
nice getting that. It's nice seeing that. Sorry to interrupt, Ben. No, it's
oh,
nice
you're
to hear
good.
that you're getting into that. I mean, like I said, those particular characters, those particular books, I think are some of the best Star Wars that's non-canon. It's nice to see that echo of Anakin's grandkids, but they're so different too, and knowing like how things played out in those books. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that. That's why me and Milton are always like I guess petitioning for the Legends material to be like known by so many people because it's just so good. Like the stories are so rich, the characters are so rich. Like they're interesting because they're new, quote unquote, new characters that are interesting and they're still connected to our main legacy characters, which is really nice.
Yeah, and there was another story written by, I think it's Joseph Schreiber, who is the writer of Death Troopers. He had a short story that had to do with this one jail cell and this guy that had a messed up stomach because he ate something, and it turned out he had like a worm that was like inside of his stomach, and like they got the worm out, but then he wasn't okay afterwards. So I'm guessing that was some kind of prequel to the Death Troopers book in a way. So then I finished this, and literally today I read the first chapter of Death Troopers. So I actually jumped into reading my first like official like Star Wars Legends Essential Edition books, because they have the new trade paperback format, which is basically the size of a hardcover without a hardcover. So as far as like dimension wise, so for me with, bad eyes, I at least can see that in a small. So I'm enjoying that. I've been I'm only one chapter in, so I can't say much about it, but I keep saying in the online chatter from time to time about how it's one of the best Star Wars books. Period. And for a Star Wars book to be a horror book, I'm like, I gotta try this out. It's we're a month away, or a month and a half away from Halloween, but I think it's a good time to read it now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that book's by far one of the best Star Wars books, period. And it basically, it's just such a good story. And it's not like any of like our main characters. That's the cool part about it, is like it's an excellent story, and it's not just like Luke. It's not like Luke going on an adventure or something.
And that helps me from that helps me from a perspective of like continuity, right? Like this story technically could like fit in Star Wars current canon because it's not dealing with anybody that's like notable, like you're saying. So for me, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm reading this thing as it's like head canon. Like this could have maybe happened somewhere down the line.
I think literally, you might have to correct me once you get further into the book, but I think the only reference, which still works, I'm pretty sure they reference, some of the characters reference like the destruction or the potential attack on the Death Star or something, the first one from A New Hope. I think that's reference, but still it doesn't matter. Like you said, it fits into canon. So like it's like, well, I'm kind of just gonna retcon this right into canon because it makes sense and it's a cool story. Like why not? Like it's like I said, there's even the little book trailer out there for it as well. So like just to throw that out there. I mean like it's just like it's just like taking a step like into Legends. Like it's one of the best ways to like step into it, and highly recommend that book.
Well, hey, I wonder why they put the Essential Legends Collection banner on the book, right? Out of the 150 books, it's one of the first ones they published with that new moniker. Ben, finally finished up. What was your week in Star Wars, man? I don't believe we got to that yet.
Yeah, I mean, my week in Star Wars, I didn't really have anything too crazy for the most part. Like, we watched the stuff on Disney Plus. We'll get into that. And then, last week when I wasn't on the show, I haven't really had too many like crazy Star Wars experiences lately. Mainly just like talking Star Wars with people. Always online chatter, seeing directors of certain movies continue to like grandstand about a controversial Star Wars movie they made. And like things like that, just the typical Star Wars online chatter week to week, seeing stuff like that, and just seeing what creators have to say. But like, other than just like the normal, I guess, absorption of like the social media buzz of Star Wars, like there really hasn't been much going on really. Like, we were talking about it in the group chat today or yesterday even, like we just haven't had anything Star Wars to talk about. We haven't had content to consume for the most part, like nothing. So I know it's just been meh. Like other than like I found that couple's YouTube channel, I really was watching a lot of that last week. But other than that, like it's just there isn't much.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, fair enough. Because there's not a lot on StarWars.com to pull from. We're gonna talk about some rumors and stuff like that relating to casting choices. But as of recording this, we are on the eve of D23, and well, as I'll explain later, I had high hopes for the gaming panel. We'll see. I'll tell you how that turned out. But we're getting a word from some sources saying, oh, there's not going to be any movie announcements. We'll see. We know how these things go. We always get so hyped, and then they let us down unless it's Star Wars Celebration, and they literally deliver. Except for movies, the movies weren't also at Star Wars. Anyway, getting into it, our housekeeping. If you are watching, we can go live with us every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern to join the conversation in the chat room. You can also listen after the fact. We put up new episodes at the beginning of the week on Monday mornings to listen to on your drives, in the gym, whatever you like to do. So, getting into it, out this week, we have one new piece of Star Wars media, and that is Star Wars issue number 27 of the flagship series, in which we have these Crimson Dawn agents that are escaping from the Death Star with the knowledge that the Death Star 2 exists. So it's all about their adventure. It's a really cool, grounded story of a family that is just trying to get away from the Empire. Very simple, straightforward plot with a lot of really good action beats and really cool moments inside of a Lambda class shuttle. I put my title as this is the love letter to the Lambda class shuttle because I've always liked the design. They do a lot of cool interior shots of what is going on inside this thing. Blasters firing, seeing that thing taking out TIE fighters, which is something I don't think I've ever seen, and also using its cockpit to eject completely from the rest of the vehicle was something that is such a toy action thing. You buy a Star Wars ship and you're like, hey, this has this action to shoot the wings off. It was very much a toy issue of hey, let's do as much as we can with this Imperial shuttle. So for me, that's what I took out of that. But it was a pretty badass issue because it's giving us new characters in Star Wars that are the average Joe. It's oh, this is the middle manager guy who decided to just break bad and get the information, and his wife is somebody that's working the docks, and they have 2 kids, and they're just trying to do the right thing. They don't think the Empire's really cutting it to be on the up and up with things these days. So they're making a stand in their own way and trying to get it to the rebels, and the rebels are we can't believe your message because we don't want to give our position away. And, so it's very much you actually see a little bit of the bureaucracy of the rebels because the rebel chain of command where it's they're getting a message of distress from this Imperial shuttle, but they don't know if they could really trust them. So there's a whole lot of cool stuff happening there. So that's just a brief summary, which I basically just told you exactly what I told you in my video because I'm rambling, but I like the issue a lot. It's a lot of fun. That's currently where we are in Star Wars, is in that era right before Return of the Jedi, and it looks like Luke might be going to Coruscant because he is the one that has a good feeling about this, as he puts it, for getting that transmission and saying, okay, there might be something worth looking into here. So there you go. We got that coming out, or that is out, actually. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great getting interesting stories like that, and then like you said, just highlighting some of the fan favorite type of ships involved, the Lambda class shuttle. That's always an iconic one. And I feel they could do more stories like that, because I believe there was a Millennium Falcon book at one point, or I'm not sure if that's canon or not anymore. Okay, well, I was going to say, because, you have different stories like that, I think, that are always really cool. I feel you have the Millennium Falcon book, we have this one, or this story involving the Lambda-class shuttle. I feel there's plenty of opportunities you could, kind of craft stories around these iconic ships,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Slave 1, I would like to see Slave 1 get, a origin story. I mean, we got it in the Jango Fett bounty hunter game where it was it was literally a police vehicle and you just stole it from this place. But other than that,
Yep.
it'd be cool. So And I was kind of fibbing when I said that was the only thing for Star Wars this week, because we had Disney Plus Day on Thursday, which means we got some Star Wars goodies. We didn't get any news. I wasn't really going and expecting news with D23 happening this weekend with the big panel tomorrow on Saturday morning. But they did drop a Cassian special look, which we'll talk about in our official preview at the latter end of this episode. But they also dropped, which was promoted beforehand, Star Wars Obi-Wan, A Jedi's Return. First of all, I'm just happy again that they dropped that ridiculous moniker for like Star Wars Gallery, The Mandalorian Season 2, whatever the heck they were saying. That it was just like, it didn't roll off the tongue very well. It wasn't memorable, but like we have our Star Wars documentaries, and Milton, you can speak more about this than I can. Like, An Empire of Dreams, and The Director and a Jedi, and The Beginning, or whatever the heck the Phantom Menace was called, I guess. And you have some really cool epic titles, and it's finally nice to see them kind of leaning back into that, because the whole time they've been giving us Marvel making ofs, and they have better titles than this. But anyway, so I'll throw it over to you, Milton. You're our expert when it comes to the documentaries. You love these things. Just tell us your quick impressions of this. I know you just watched this today, I believe, right?
Yeah, I watched it. I started it a little bit this morning, and I finished it at lunch at work today. Loved it. I mean, it's I think just because, obviously it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we all love that character. But what I took away from it was there's a lot of footage in like the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Now, not behind the scenes of the show, behind the scenes of the making of A New Hope, and even with the making of Phantom Menace, I've never seen. Like they showed Ewan McGregor's audition tape when he did Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I never saw that before. And then
I
they
know.
showed like him meeting George Lucas, and George telling him, literally, you hear George say,
Yep.
"Oh, Obi-Wan doesn't want to train Anakin. He's going to because it's his master's dying wish." And it's like, I mean, it's nice to know that it's nice to hear that, because Lucas had a plan the whole time. You can tell with his trilogy of movies, planned it out. He already knew. So it was nice to see that interaction. But overall, I love seeing Ewan McGregor, Hayden, Deborah Chow. Bonnie Peace was in this documentary.
Yep.
Joel Edgerton. First of all, Bonnie Peace is still fire looking, okay? Like 100% all the way live good looking. She was super chill to see. Overall, though, I thought this documentary did a really good job at touching on each character's, love of Star Wars, why they're in the show, how they've impacted the show. Obviously, Ewan McGregor and Hayden and Deborah Chow were the stars of this documentary. I thought it was well done. It was never boring to me. I was never like, okay, I can't watch this anymore. That's stupid. I was hooked the whole time. I love seeing behind the scenes of any movie being made, especially Star Wars. And we got to see these guys train. You can definitely tell the lightsaber battles were taken seriously, because you saw the training and the effort they put into it. So I love this. I mean, it was a great documentary. I can rewatch it. That's how good it is.
All right, so we get the rewatchability factor from Milton, which is super important. I'll go and give it my 2 cents. So I've been portioning out, the ILM Light and Magic documentary, which I was telling Joel, who was our guest last week, about how I've been piecing that out, and last week was the last episode. I literally spaced it perfectly, because I was watching every episode, like one episode every Wednesday, and now this Wednesday I have another brand new Star Wars documentary to watch. So I feel like I've been like pretty laser focused on the behind the scenes aspect of Star Wars in the last like month and a half at this point. So for me it was pretty cool getting that transition. But I'll right off the top, and this goes to Light and Magic, how much extra footage are they holding on to after all these years? Because it's insane.
Exactly.
Like I've never seen that video of Alec Guinness sitting in the chair in front of the Falcon. Like, it opens up with him just sitting there talking about, this is not science fiction, it's a little of this, it's a little of that. And I think he summed it up like really well, how it could be like the future, the present, and the past, right? Like everything, there's no way of saying exactly what it is, because it has elements of samurai, elements of science fiction. So that, yeah, it was really cool. And it gave us a good vantage point from like every creator that was involved. Even went down to the stunt coordinator. He got his time to shine a little bit. But then it went to like everybody else. It was cool. They magnified and said, let's see, like Ewan McGregor, he's actually an executive producer, so that was cool. They pointed out like he actually had creative control quite a bit in this. It goes to the point where he gets to see his lightsaber hilt and like, oh, this was your episode 3, this was the episode 1. Here's your one that has a little bit of modification. So we get to see those like behind the scenes, like off the sets kind of moments. And it was just, very good, very concise, just an hour long as you needed to get the information out. And yeah, seeing the young Obi-Wan, seeing Ewan McGregor with George was like crazy because
it was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I've never I've seen the documentary you're talking about is called The Beginning. I've watched that multiple times. That one's rewatchable to me. Like I can go back and watch it tonight and be like enhanced by it,
Yeah.
And you get to see obviously them being young in 97, 98, whenever they made that movie. There, like I said, there was things in this documentary that I did not see in that one. Again, I was thinking like, damn, they held this footage this long. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's crazy how like have all this stuff. Just release it all because I'll absorb it. Like Star Wars fans will absorb all of it. We and said this multiple times as we've done this podcast. Star Wars fans ain't that hard to please. Okay, like it really aren't. So just tell us a good story, give us great content, and we're locked in.
Yeah, I would say too before I throw it over to Ben, the fidelity of those old scenes from 1997 like blew my mind. Like just they cleaned up that footage so well because HD wasn't even a thing back then. They managed to just clean up the movies, even with like the current like old timey like that they have in theaters. I am amazed by how they're able to do with cleaning up old grainy film footage and making it look digital. So anyway, I'll throw it over to you, Ben, your first impressions and thoughts overall on this.
Oh yeah, I think the entire thing was done really well. As I mentioned when we first saw the title of it, I thought that was the announcement for the second season of Obi-Wan, just because that was a perfect title for a second season. But hey, the documentary is pretty good too. But this documentary, I think it was done really well. Like you both mentioned, the unused footage or the unreleased footage, I feel like was some of the biggest highlights of the documentary. Just because I feel like with us being in the loop as we are with Star Wars, I feel like we've heard a lot of the stuff like say Deborah Chow said or Ewan said or any of the people involved in the show said throughout the entire campaign of their marketing and their interviews, the stuff Hayden said, like a lot of the stuff we heard from them, I feel like we had heard already, but like the extra stuff, like we mentioned, the extra behind the scenes of, the Phantom Menace or Alec Guinness. Like Alec Guinness, that one was the one that really caught me. I was like, dang, they have old stuff of him.
Seriously.
So, you have stuff like, you have stuff like that. You have, you have plenty of different things scattered throughout this documentary. Like you said, the stunt people, like different things like that just made it a really worthwhile watch. And as you mentioned on your opening part of your breakdown of it, Chris, it's concise, it's to the point, gets the information across. It's not drug out too long, because I feel like if it was drug out for 2 hours, then we might be having a different conversation, like saying, it was kind of spread out too much. But I think they got the point across that they needed to tell. And then as for me, as for the information, the unreleased footage of say the Phantom Menace or Alec Guinness, there's probably plenty of footage from all the movies, say from the Lucas era specifically, 1 through 6, that, because if you guys think about it this way, when Lucas was making the prequels, the behind the scenes stuff was so huge. There has to be hours and hours and hours of footage from that era specifically. And then, of course, a lot of footage from back, their testing and all got sold to Disney they're like, all right, let's just hold on to this so we can potentially strategically use it, and sprinkle it in here and there.
Yeah.
And now with Alec Guinness, we got this stuff with the Ewan,
Right.
and and so on and so on. Like that sort of stuff was great. And then also one of the other big highlights of the documentary as well was actually seeing Liam Neeson like sitting there talking. Like I was like, man, I would have never thought that we would ever see this again.
Remember when he said to one of the TV reporting sites about how he was like never going to be caught on TV ever again because it's not worth it? And we were all like, oh, he said, joking.
Yeah, he said he was too good for TV. Is what he said.
I think that's funny. Like honestly, I mean, let's be real here. He confirmed it because he even said he's like, Deborah approached me like a year or two ago about this and told me what the story was. He's like, and Liam's or Ewan's doing it. I was on board. Like, and of course, I mean, he's going to lie to the public, be like, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Because, I mean, that's a huge reveal. Just like the Andrew Garfield thing with No Way Home or Far From Home, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to give that away. And look, I'm sure Disney paid him a hell of a lot of money to do a 3-minute scene.
Are you sure it's just going to be 3 minutes and not like 3 hours in a season 2? Who knows? Woo.
Right? I mean, listen, if they want to bring him back for a season 2, I'm all about it. It's freaking Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, ain't nobody going to be like, oh, Ewan McGregor and Qui-Gon should be on the same screen. No, we want that. Here's
the thing, too. Like, let's be real about Liam Neeson for a minute. I mean, come on, man. He isn't doing too much quality work lately. He's just, to me, he's like, just putting himself up there, getting these similar to Taken type movies over and over just for a paycheck. Why not just get the paycheck from Star Wars and do something quality? Like that's my thing with Liam Neeson. It's like, stop doing these Taken type movies and just come back to Star Wars. Like Star Wars has plenty of money. It's Disney. Like,
yeah. He's just waiting for. He can't be in a whole lot of stuff. I mean, he's only in one movie, so this could be it. You know what I mean? This is his only chance to be in Star Wars again. It's not like he existed for a big timeline jump. I mean, he's gonna be in animation. He's gonna be doing the voice again for Qui-Gon and Tales of the Jedi, which is gonna be really neat. Hopefully, we get a release date on that this upcoming.
Which I think that's a good sign. That's a good sign of him being more involved.
Exactly. Yeah, no, but I like seeing a lot of the current stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with the volume. Each one of us has voiced our concerns with some of the visual effects and different things that were maybe taking away a little bit of our enjoyment of the show. But nonetheless, it was kind of cool. I like seeing that one moment when Ewan McGregor is like way offset in that desert, and then you have Hayden Christensen, who they literally made him exactly like he was in Revenge of the Sith, and it was crazy because I was like, oh, I didn't realize like he had that much like everything going on in that one little scene. We see him in the cloak in the desert, the Mirage image, but it was pretty cool. I was like, Obi-Wan, and just see each other from like 300 feet away. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's well done. I mean, and it's nice. Like I said, that's a on location, site, which. That it was a quick scene, but it was very powerful too. So it was nice to see that brotherhood. And you definitely tell these guys actually cared about each other. They're friends. They have a great partnership. Again, I would love to see season 2 of the show. I think obviously with the criticism of season 1, I'm sure they would tighten it up. And if they want to bring back Hayden for some type of like flashbacks, I think if you're going to do a season 2, I know this is probably another episode or topic for another episode. If you do a season 2. Just do it about Ewan's character. Don't bring in Hayden as Darth Vader. You can do memories, just things that he's like with Arrow. Because I've been rewatching Arrow, Ben. So I'm on season 3 right now.
Good job.
Yeah, but like just do what Oliver did, like with all his stuff moving forward. Just tell that story. We don't need present Darth Vader at this point because now, like Deborah said, and that's the thing. But like Deborah said in the documentary. Darth Vader had to let that go so he can become who he's going to become later.
Yeah. Well, my thing with that is like they could do that so well because, we always use the Arrow model as an example, but it's just because they executed on it perfectly. Like even take the first couple of seasons before actually like say Deathstroke is in person, when Oliver's like having flashbacks about Slade Wilson, like that could be similar. Like Ewan can just do flashbacks to Anakin and like. Boom! Like there you go. Like you have plenty of things to do because I think personally, and like not to harp on the show too much, but to me personally, I think after, I don't want to sound, I guess I'll just say honest, but I think they owe it to the fans to bring Hayden back to do a little more, because, in their marketing leading up to the show, they were making it seem like he was going to be in the show quite a bit, and he was barely in it, overall. So, to me, I think they need to bring him back just to, give us more of an extended look. Say, out of a potential 3-hour show, give us 30 minutes of Anakin. 30. We need 30 solid minutes.
That's fair, Ben, but we also know, and this was never officially confirmed by Lucasfilm, that he's going to be in the Ahsoka show. So, I mean, at the very least, we're going to get a good amount, hopefully a good amount. I mean, maybe it's just the same as Obi-Wan, one major scene for 5 minutes and that's it. But yeah, either way, it was cool that they really did put the focus on Hayden and some of the other characters, one of the actors, the son of the one rapper guy. What is it? Osei Jackson.
Oh, Ice Cube.
Osei Jackson. I loved his energy and the fact that he's one of us on the podcast, where he's talking about the stories and how he would be flipping out if he was a kid. There's always that one actor that's on a Star Wars set in the recent films and stuff that is I'm a huge fan, and what am I doing on set? I don't know how to process this right now.
Literally, I said that today because I know. So O'Shea Jackson is his name, and he's a huge wrestling fan. He loves Star Wars. He loves Marvel. And literally, I said to myself today, I'm like, that's pretty much me. If I said, you cannot put me on a Star Wars set, because I'd be geeking out trying to hang out with Hayden and Ewan the whole time. Literally, I'd be like, guys, can we play lightsabers, bro? I'm like, I want to duel you guys. They were doing if I was an actor, we're in the scene together, I swear to God, I would do this. I know myself. I was acting with Hayden or Ewan. We do the scene, cut. They get the next shot set up. I'm like, guys, can we do a quick duel real quick? I just want to duel you guys. I just want to see how good I am with a saber. I would probably challenge them. Because I'm a nerd
Next scene, you give him a broken wrist, and it's we gotta delay shooting because one of our actors broke his wrist on a lightsaber duel.
Look, it'd be worth it.
You just cost the company millions of dollars.
Write it into the show.
That's the thing is I know. I think a lot of us would be like that. We would all be those. We'd be all let's just be real. We'd be those awkward actors on set geeking out too much and then being like, man, why did we hire this person?
Exactly.
But
you're
because we'd be sitting there going, holy smokes, I'm sitting there talking to John Favreau's over there talking to me. Holy crap. Pedro Pascal's talking to me. Holy smokes, all these people. There's a baby Grogu sitting over there. All these things.
Taking pictures. I'll be taking pictures. I'll be texting my boys. I'm like, yo, y'all can't believe this. I mean, oh my God. You can't put me on set. I'm telling you right now, it's over.
Yeah, we'd be the leakers.
Exactly.
All right, so moving on from that awesome documentary, we got some news on a previous season of Star Wars TV on Disney Plus or streaming, whatever you want to call it, because it's not really TV anymore, everybody. We got the Book of Boba Fett winning a Creative Art Emmy for Outstanding Special Effects. So yes, I mean, say what you will about Book of Boba Fett. We all know it's probably most people's least favorite of the Disney Plus Star Wars series to date, but it's still Star Wars. It is still Industrial Light and Magic, and that means it's still going to always be up in the running for pushing the boundaries of technology. I mean, you see what was happening with Slave One in action. You see what was happening with that lizard creature in the beginning, or that weird sand creature. There's so many moments. The Rancor, I mean, come on. How awesome did that look on the TV? And of course, breaking ground with Luke Skywalker CGI deepfake that was way more improved than season 2 of Mandalorian. Yeah, it's a no-brainer to give this thing the Emmy for special effects. I mean, well, I will say it will have some stiff competition next year when we have House of the Dragons, we have Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. I freaking love it, and oh my gosh, that thing looks just breathtaking, every frame of it. But for now, we get to bask in the glory, or we get to celebrate Book of Boba Fett winning an Emmy. So I just wanted to point that out there. Maybe that will lead some credence to possibly bringing us in for a season 2. I mean, it's an Emmy award winning show. Why not?
Yeah, I think, to me, in my opinion, when it comes to these shows, it does. I think no matter what the show's titled, at minimum you're going to get 2 seasons. Like, no matter how bad it does, good it does, I think Boba will get a second season, especially now because of getting this Emmy award. I do think, though, like, if you look at a lot of the episodes, other than like the lizard, like weird desert vision thing, like other than that, and then like say, I really think the Luke stuff is what carried this award, I would have to say, because like the visuals of like the forest, him jumping around, him moving, talking, all that stuff, like since it's a creative art award, I think that's what carried it. But overall, like even without, like if you cut that sequence out, I think the show still would have been at least nominated at a minimum to get the award, just because of, like I said, the visuals from the lizard thing, the rank war, like all those different things. I think they all played a good effect into it all.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Milton? I don't think we ever really had criticism on at least on this podcast about the visual effects.
Oh, I mean, look, it's well deserved. I mean, there's things on there that probably push the envelope of filmmaking, TV making, whatnot. I mean, again, that show in particular, as I think about it, like even the first episode, I think it was the first or second episode, whenever he has a ship, maybe it's later in the season, but the Rancor pit, but not Rancor pit, the oh my goodness, Sarlacc pit, yes. Like just seeing that visual is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But like I mean, again, it's worth it. Like they deserve it. I mean, hell, the Rancor, the way it moved at the premiere, or excuse me, the finale,
yeah,
is dope. Again, I can't complain about the visuals at all. That Luke Skywalker thing, I think it blew us all away. We're like, damn, like it looks like really Mark Hamill being right there.
mm-hmm.
So it's well deserved of the Emmy. Obviously next year, like you mentioned, will be tougher competition because you'll have those other shows that were listed. So yeah, I have no problem with this. I love it.
Heck yeah! So there you go.
I was going to say, to note, like when it comes to like the visuals as well, I think one of the best lit overall scenes like that stand out to me. Like you have, of course, all the scenes we've mentioned so far, but I think one of the best scenes of the entire series, in terms of like the tone, the dialogue, the lighting, was the scene at night when Boba was sitting around the campfire, and like when it like right before it cuts, and he's like, like we're a family, or like we're a pack, or whatever he said, or we're a tribe, or whatever he says in that scene, before they go and invade, before they go to Jabba's palace to get the Slave One back. That whole scene, I think, was like one of the best like overall lit scenes, and just another example of like how well they did things.
Heck yeah. You see the big walkers in that last episode. You see Mando. Yep. You see Boba flying. I mean, how could you not love that? That was cool. Just offing pikes. Oh, seeing Cad Bane. So much to love. So much to love about that. So getting into, I guess, some prior D23. Now I will prelude this by saying it kind of sucks when stuff like this breaks. We're going to talk about it, but just know that there's a good chance you're going to see official stuff about this tomorrow, or you might already know by the time you're listening to this after the fact. Who knows? But we have, first off, some casting announcements relating to the Acolyte. So this comes to us from Deadline. We have Squid Game's Lee Jung-jae. He is going to be the lead male actor in the Acolyte. Prior to this, we have... Amandla, she's the lead female, and there was also somebody else that was in this as well. Let's see, she was also announced by Deadline earlier that day, and that would be Jody Turner-Smith. Now, have either of you watched the cult classic, which would be Squid Game on Netflix? I wouldn't even call it cult classic because it's really popular, apparently.
Never watched it.
What about you, Ben?
Nope. I can't say I have, but I know when I told my cousin this casting, who he's a diehard Squid Games fan, he thought it was excellent. So I
Oh,
guess it's a really good casting. So like I don't know. He said he thinks it was really good, and maybe no, he was saying because I don't think they mentioned any characters who
no.
this person was playing, correct? Other than a lead
Nope.
potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
lead male.
I think if any, yep. I think if anything, what this potentially end up being, there's a chance we may not even see his face. Like, because what if he ends up being Darth Plagueis, like a young Plagueis,
Yep.
maybe? Like, there's.
That's
I think that's what this is leaning toward.
yeah. I immediately thought of, oh, could this be said Sith character, even in a flashback? Because we've heard rumblings about there's at least going to be mentions maybe of Darth Bane, Darth Revan. Who knows? Maybe they'll have a holocron and somebody will be talking through a holocron that's saved for somebody in the generations of the future. So it could be anything really, or just a contemporary. Maybe it doesn't even have to be a Jedi or a Sith. Maybe it could just be like a smuggler character. Who knows? We know nothing, and I hope we know more after this weekend's over with.
Well, also, I mean, just to note as well, we're immediately jumping, thinking maybe it could be a Sith person. Maybe this is the, of course. So we're going to be on the Sith side of things for the Acolyte with the lead character with the woman Amandla. So maybe this character will be on like the good side. Like maybe that'll be the person she's going up against through the series.
Yeah, I could see something about. I could see something about like he's the love interest of her or something like that, trying to pull her towards the light. I don't know.
Yep. Oh yeah. You always have those like, whether it be the good guys trying to pull the bad girls or the bad girls trying to pull the good guys one way or another, and like that could be this type of a situation.
Heck yeah, but I mean, going back to I said this before. I said at first I'm like, oh, I gotta watch Squid Game now, and then I kind of took that back. I said, oh, you know what? This is kind of what I like. I mean, this guy's by no means like a no-name, like up and coming. I mean, he's huge. Apparently, there was a lot of other franchises that were trying to grab him after success of Squid Game. But for me, I like to have my new Star Wars characters have their own identity as Star Wars. I always like to use this kind of analogy or whatever. It's like, I don't want to see like Captain America like playing a Jedi. Like I'm gonna just see Captain America. I'm gonna see Chris Evans. I'm gonna see Captain America the whole movie, and it's gonna sort of like take me out of it a little bit. Where I'm just like, yeah, this face is too familiar. So for me, I'm gonna kind of lock it down. I'm not gonna watch Squid Game until at least maybe after I watch Acolyte. Now at this point, just kind of steer clear. That's how I like to look at casting. Star Wars for me has always been about the unknown actors, the up and coming actors. There's lots of exceptions here and there. With a lot with the recent stuff. Like, oh yeah, you have Phasma. It's played by a Game of Thrones actor. But the good thing was you never seen her face because she was behind a helmet the whole time anyway. So, stuff like that. I have my little weird logic about it, but that's how I go about it. But it's cool nonetheless to see new fresh talent taking on the galaxy far, far away. Yep. Okay. So we also.
Well, I was
go ahead.
I was going to mention. So I figured we were going to jump in. I was going to say so we don't skip over Jody Turner Smith. She's like another actress. While we were talking, I was looking into her filmography and stuff. She was in The Last Ship. I feel like I've seen that before. She's been in a lot of different projects. Really, she was in a Witcher video game. It looks like actually.
Wait, really? What was it called?
Yeah, The Witcher Blood Ortis is it called?
Oh my gosh, she was
video
Blood
game.
Origin.
that was a Netflix
Oh.
anime.
Okay, well she was in that, so she must have been voice acting in that.
Oh wait, no. That didn't even come out yet. I think she's the lead actress in that.
Oh, okay. Well, then she's in that. I was looking for like different things. But yeah, she's been in a lot of different projects. Like she looks like she's experienced actress at least.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just because I haven't seen a specific actor in something doesn't mean that they are not super experienced. As we all know, I tend to stick with the fandom pop culture kind of movies for the most part. Every once in a while, I'll branch out and see like like a horror movie or something of that nature. But yeah, I have a very small wheelhouse when it comes to movies these days. So for me, I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be great getting some seasoned actors in this show that we know nothing about.
All right.
Let's move on to this one. And I had to preface this one because I was telling you like, oh my god, and you're in the chat earlier today, Ben, about this guy's been cast, and you're like, you see no reason why I would be this excited. So I'll start off with the story, with the actual announcement first, and I'll go into my story about why I'm flipping out about this. So we have, and this has been confirmed since it was first broken by Cinelinx, very trusted source here, but they are also updated to be confirmed by what is it, the Hollywood Reporter. So that pretty much makes it confirmed
Hollywood
at this
Reporter.
point. Yes, we have Iman Esfandi to play live action Ezra Bridger in Star Wars. This is interesting because I thought it was all but confirmed that the guy that played in Aladdin was basically going to be him. No?
I thought I heard that too. See,
Um,
I thought this was the same guy. I ain't gonna lie when I saw it.
Oh no, this is not the same guy. The other guy was Rahul Kohli. Him.
No. It wasn't him. It was
and then
Amina Masad.
the other guy. Yeah. Pull up the other guy's name. But yeah, it was getting run around like the other guy, the guy that played Aladdin, was going to be him, and then Rahul Kohli was mentioned. Like, there's all these actors getting rumored, and now we actually have Hollywood Reporter actually confirming it. So it seems like this is legit, and like Chris mentioned to some of our other points earlier in the show, like maybe this is previewing, or maybe this is kind of like a precursor to an actual official announcement, because when it comes to this type of stuff, it's like I feel like so anybody who's ever watched like movie stuff online on YouTube has seen Collider over the years, and they've pretty much disappeared now. But years ago, when Mark Fernandez was running Collider, he always talked about it when you got these type of big news things coming out from the trades, like the Hollywood Reporter or Deadline or places or Entertainment Weekly, things like that.
Yeah.
If any type of a news story gets floated out there, that's the company basically calling up Hollywood Reporter saying, "Hey, put this story out there and kind of judge. We basically want to use you guys to judge our fans' reaction." And that's basically probably what happened here. Is probably Star Wars basically put it out there, and I would be willing to bet like they're gauging the reaction right now, and if it's good reaction, they may announce it tomorrow. But if it's bad reaction, they may be like, "Oh, let's reel it back and maybe recalculate this."
Yeah, so it's really telling too, because he floated up on my Twitter feed today, and he put out his first tweet, which was like a random ass like voice clip of some sort. So I looked at his Twitter history, and it says September 2022, and he's like, "This is my first tweet," or something. Like, the celebrity has to make his Twitter account because he's gonna eventually put out tomorrow that I am playing Ezra Bridger. Like, why would it be so coincidental to make a Twitter account the day before a gigantic announcement? Like, he's contractually obligated to like make a Twitter account to promote this show he's gonna be in. You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be it.
Hey, if that's the case, then great. I mean, I don't know this actor's work.
I'm looking at it right now.
I mean, looking at the picture, he looks like an older Ezra.
Yeah.
Well, I know we got him in animation, but it looks like he could be live action Ezra. I mean, I'm curious what they're gonna do with that character. I mean, obviously he must be around doing something. He had to affect the Star Wars galaxy in some way, shape, or form. So I'm actually curious what they're gonna do, because I have no idea at this point what they're gonna do with that character.
Yeah, so apparently it was in something called the Inspection, and King Richard, which I believe was up for a couple awards. So
Yep.
yeah, he has definitely been in more like drama based things. At least King Richard would be. But it was really funny how this story broke, and I'll go into my own little little rant, little story here. So, and this goes back to my nephew. I have a 3-year-old nephew, and he has an imaginary friend. I never had one. I didn't know many people that have one, but he has an imaginary friend. So, he has like an old little flip cell phone that nobody uses anymore. That he uses as basically a toy. So, I was hanging out with him last weekend, and he had the phone, and he'll grab it and he'll flip it open, and I'll be like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm calling my friend Iman." Yeah, it's just like he came up with this character in his head called Iman for whatever reason. My sister, doesn't know how he came up with the name. Like, we didn't even know if Iman was an actual person's name. Like, I've never heard of the name before. And then this story broke, and I went, "Oh my gosh." So I sent a text message to my sister and my brother-in-law with this article saying, "Hey, Iman's gonna be in Star Wars, guys." They just about lost it because we're sitting there puzzled. Like, you could name your imaginary friend Kevin or Roger or Rick or Steve or whoever, but he comes up with Iman, and now we have Iman in Star Wars. I was like, this can't be too on the nose, man. This is just too funny.
That's
So
that's
there-
great. Like that's. Go on.
I'm about to say that's kind of a coincidence, but hey, who doesn't have imaginary friends? That's all I gotta say, Chris.
Oh man, so yeah, I get to see my nephew. What is it, on Sunday? So I'll be telling him this. Like, "Hey, did you know Evan's in Star Wars now? How's he doing? Tell him to give me all the scoops on what's happening over there on the set." Oh man!
Yeah,
All right.
that's great though. Like it's always great hearing like stories like that, and then just interesting coincidences. At that, like that's hilarious. I think though, like the crazy thing is, it's just I don't know. I wish Star Wars would have got ahead of this story. Like I wish they would have got ahead of it. Like why not? Sure, Disney or D23 is tomorrow. Like just go and post it on your website this morning at 9 a.m. and be like, "Hey guys, boom, news." Like I wish they would have got ahead of it because
I think it was. Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think if it was any further out, they would have. But it's the fact that it's literally within 24 hours. It's at this point, it's like, let's pretend it didn't happen. It's under 24 hours. Let's pretend that this never got out, and we'll try to make sure we surprise some people in the crowd that are going to be there watching live.
Yeah.
And then put on StarWars.com immediately afterwards.
Yeah, I think, or like just even do what I've petitioned for on this podcast several times. They need to lead into some of the comedy side of it. Just like make some jokes, like, "Oh, like this is a bad kept secret, blah blah blah." Like just something, light. Because I feel like it's a time to like kind of just pivot, have a laugh about it, and be like, "Yeah, this is our Ezra," because like Ezra's a huge character. Like he's a huge character. Like basically, they're continuing Star Wars Rebels for all intents and purposes. Ahsoka's going to be the next season of Rebels, in my opinion. So like they're continuing. Ezra is as big as character of any, especially to be in live action, and the fact that they're bringing him in just means to a point you were mentioning earlier in our group chat. So you have Ahsoka, you have Sabine. Sabine confirmed. Ezra confirmed by the Hollywood Reporter, potentially getting announced tomorrow. You have all of these different things left and right. Now the big what's the term? I guess like white whale, like missing link type thing for the entire situation is, when is the official Thrawn announcement happening? Like that's the big one I think everybody's waiting for. But Ezra is just as big.
In the report on Cinelinx by Jordan Mason, he does reference that Lars Mikkelsen, somebody told him recently in that same time that he learned about Ezra, that he is playing Thrawn still. because I think there was a little confusion a couple
Mm.
months ago that people were saying, "Oh, Lars Mikkelsen, the voice of Thrawn from Rebels, isn't playing him anymore," but apparently it's back to him again. And you said in the beginning, like, "Oh, you know, Disney's testing the water for some things. Like they'll throw out stuff out there to get announced." So if they threw out something like this, it leads me to believe, okay, if they threw something out like this, like there's got to be a bigger surprise that they're going to have in store for tomorrow. And I think that could be a big, big splash if they actually have, let's say they have Lars Mikkelsen in the makeup, just like, hey, I just came off the set from recording for today, and here I am. I'm playing Grand Admiral Thrawn, you know, just like... They've had Orson Krennic with Ben Mendelsohn doing that before at Celebration with the full costume with the Death Trooper escort, so why not?
I mean, hey, it'd be a hell of a surprise.
Heck yeah. So there's our rumors. We're not going to spend any more time talking about it because, frankly, either this could be a big waste of time or we might be just treading the same ground a week from now when we officially talk about it, or at least just note that it's official at that point. Yep. Something else that is tied to D23 is, this is today was a video game panel. Disney, Marvel, it's the first time they ever had like an official like video game panel just for their own properties. They announced ahead of time we would get Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. They did give us that. They delivered on that, but they didn't deliver on anything else Star Wars, which was very disappointing. It was only like a 22-minute presentation. It was on YouTube, so I was thankful that they actually let us watch it live with everybody else. But it was bogged down by so many damn mobile game announcements or mobile updates on games already that it was like, okay, this is like just disappointing. They announced a really cool Marvel game, which is going to be, doesn't even have a name yet. It's apparently got Black Panther, Cap, and it's in World War II with Paris and then also with Wakanda. So that's going to be cool. But with Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, in November, it's getting a release of this whole brand new edition. And you could buy the DLC. It's basically a big DLC pack. It's called Lego Star Wars: Skywalker Saga Galactic Edition. In this, they're gonna have a total of 13 character packs. There's gonna be 6 new character packs that include the likes of Obi-Wan, Andor characters, Book of Boba Fett characters, Clone Wars characters, Rebels characters, even from the Star Wars Summer Vacation characters are coming. I believe it's like going to be $14.99 if you just want to buy the 6 new ones that are coming out, which is what I'll be doing. But was a little bit let down that they announced all this and there was like no new levels or anything, because I was hoping maybe at least give us a little bit of Mandalorian content, but I guess this game has seen the end of its days at this point, and I guess they just don't want to spend any more time developing on it, which is fine, because honestly, I'm still playing through the game, still like just a little bit over halfway through getting all the Kyber bricks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was very annoying for me, and I won't spend too much time talking about this because I do want to get into our Andor preview. But they started off the stream by like having a sizzle of like just different games, and one of them was Squadrons, which is so irrelevant at this point because the game came out in 2020 and literally there's been no new content for over a year. So why would you even start the damn thing showing that, thinking I was getting hyped up for some kind of like expansion or a sequel? And then they showed Jedi Fallen Order too. I was like, oh cool, if they showed this in the beginning, they're showing us basically everything we're about to watch. And Jedi Survivor, of course, was nowhere to be found, and I was waiting to do the thumbnail and the title of this thing all day, thinking that I'd be doing a Jedi Survivor gameplay trailer breakdown, and unfortunately I was wrong, which is fine because we're going to do our preview in a minute here for Andor. But yeah, it's the good old getting hyped up beyond your belief for something that we all know happens with Lucasfilm.
And this is why I keep my expectations very much here.
Yeah,
I have to, especially when it comes to video games. Like you already know, you know my relationship with Lucasfilm since Disney's taken over about their video games, and that does sound like it should have been something official. But again, I mean that's their history. So Chris, at this point, Chris, you should not expect anything else besides disappointment.
yeah. Well, I mean, if the game's coming out in March, you got to start showing us something at this point. Now, the only other
Oh,
time, unless
but they have a weird history of doing that. I mean, Ben talks about it all the time. Like Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and I'd say probably the influence with Disney. Weird about being cagey with their fans. Like, stop trying to
mm-hmm.
hide stuff. Like, just give it to us. We'll absorb it, break it down
Yeah,
and analyze it. Don't be scared to give us stuff. Don't be scared to communicate with us. Again,
yeah.
you have the Star Wars show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
use that platform to be like, hey, this is probably coming out, blah 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 blah. Like, it's
Yeah.
True.
Well,
True.
Milton, the issue with that awesome idea is this: that if they use the Star Wars show and make an announcement on there, then you're committed to it, and you don't have to.
right,
You can't back out of it then.
right.
Actually, you can because that's happened several
I'll
times.
say they've
But
done
my
it.
thing with my thing with the whole gaming thing, like not to down too much on the gaming side of things, Chris, but like when when you were like excited about like the gaming panel, I was thinking to myself, man, I feel like Milton right now, like thinking, well, I don't think we're gonna get anything because the gaming side of things has been disappointing, honestly, to me. Just because Lego was a success, Fallen Order was obviously a huge success. Everything else, it just seems like it's like let down, let down, let down, let down. And I'm just
Yeah,
like, man, Star Wars,
like
just
Star Wars.
step
Yeah.
it up on it and don't be cagey.
Disney itself has been dropping the ball with
Yeah.
all their properties with video games. I mean, why can't we have the
Oh
Destiny
yeah.
2 of the Marvel universe with Avengers? That completely sucks. Like that game just got driven to the
Yep.
ground. We should have a live service Battlefront that's still going on now. If they would have freaking did a better job with putting it out at first. Like games like Apex Legends or Call of Duty or Fortnite, right? Those shooters are always getting new content. Like there should
Yeah.
have been a Star Wars game that's still going on right now to kind of compete with those games. Perfect situation. That game could have been developed from now until 2032 if they wanted to. So I do not get like how they haven't had the enough foresight of seeing that ahead of time. It's just a little bit weird. I
Well,
mean, yeah.
just to add in there, like even like what Milton mentioned, like they should just give us the info and let us analyze it, deal with it or not. Like just stick with it. Be like, this is what we're making. If you guys like it, awesome. If you don't, well, it's still coming out. Don't get too worried about the fans. Like obviously you want to worry about the fans and stuff, but you gotta stick with a plan. You gotta just lay even. This is my thing with the gaming side of things. Even if they announce 5 years worth of games and announce them, and people are like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this or that or the other thing. Okay, that's fine. But how about we just release the games and just see what people think once they get playing them? Just because it's like you can't stay so cagey because then it makes the fans. I always say it. It feels like Star Wars fans are always in the dark on everything, and to me, I mean, heck, look at even in terms of overall management stuff. Look at the way Warner Brothers Discovery is doing things. Like David Zaslav. Say what you want about him, whether you like him or not. He's going through, laying out a plan, doing it, and he's dealing with the blowback, whether it be positive or negative. He's just dealing with it. And Star Wars, I think as a brand, in a video game sense, they could take a lesson from that and just be like, hey, let's lay out a plan and just stick to it and go. Because that's why you have all these delays. Look at the Knights of the Old Republic stuff. That's all just all over the board. And then you have all these different things, and it's just I feel like there's such a big opportunity there. Gaming is huge. Gaming is, I think, bigger than ever nowadays. So there's such a huge opportunity for Star Wars to take a chunk out of the apple or pie or whatever they're saying. It's just sitting there waiting.
Yeah. So anyway, keep an eye out for hashtag Jedi Survivor Watch or something, because I think we could expect the news maybe at the Game Awards, which isn't for another 3 months in December. So That would be my next guess. But for anything, we could be just getting a gameplay trailer out of nowhere, which is probably the most likely scenario at this point. So, something that we didn't expect, that I was happy to receive on Disney Plus Day is we had this Andor Disney Plus special look or whatever they called it, and I was very happy because I actually was planning on going to see the Rogue One in theaters and IMAX, and realized to my dismay that, oh my gosh, it was only on that one weekend, and I was like, no, I was really gonna try to see it, but then they literally put up the same footage that was there on Disney Plus. I'm pretty sure it was basically the same. I assume it is because from what people explained and described it to me as, it does seem that way. So we open up, we have Tony Gilroy talking, you know, with everything that is happening, like the feel of the actual series with, of course, Cassian Andor himself, Diego Lugo. They're just having this nice, like, casual, just, you know, maybe like a 5-minute explanation with like B-roll of what's happening, what is their mission statement with the show, like all about the in-depth character work that comes first over everything else. Just hearing Tony Gilroy, I've never really seen the guy in any interviews or anything like that. So it was a cool treat to kind of put a face to the words that I've been seeing a lot of on the internet. And then they did show us like a nice big chunk of actual stuff from the show. So they did put out a minute-long clip about a week ago. So it has that, but then it actually fast forward. It actually takes place a little bit before that, a little bit more added dialogue, and then it goes into a nice big action sequence, which I was amazed by that action sequence because it basically looked all practical, and it just looked very creative, very much like a spy thriller kind of vibe, which is exactly what this thing was promoted as. And if that wasn't all, they did have a new like teaser trailer or a new trailer like tacked on to the end of that whole footage. So I was very satisfied. I was very happy with that. I know, Ben, you checked this out. What'd you think?
Yeah, I checked it out only about 3 hours ago, so I've checked it out really, really fresh. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Like you mentioned, I hadn't actually seen Tony Gilroy, like what he even looked like, so it was good kind of putting a face to words there. And then, of course, seeing Diego Luna talk and, just hearing them go over the show and like where their heads are at on it. I thought that was nice. And then just getting like the little clips we got with that, I would assume like rebel officer or rebel spy talking to Cassian about potentially joining to like fight against these people, which, presumably was the Empire he's talking about. So, it was cool getting that, a little bit of dialogue there and that sequence. And then, of course, like you mentioned, the action scene was done really well. I thought of Milton when I saw it because I was like, man, this kind of does look practical. I feel like it's something Milton will like.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's really well done, really well made. Like the trailer at the end was done really well. Like, you have Mon Mothma talking.
Mm-hmm.
You have I feel like some of the shots in it were extra, like, there were new little shots added here and there, so that was a nice touch.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think the biggest thing with this show, in my opinion, is like Tony Gilroy. I know, like, from over the years, like hearing about his filmmaking style and overall producing style, is like he's not like too close with Star Wars, if that makes sense. Like, he's not like Jon Favreau or Filoni, like really inside Star Wars. Like, he's there just to make a good movie, or a good show for that matter. So like, and I feel like you 100% get that vibe. Like, it feels like Star Wars, but it doesn't feel. It feels unique. Like, it feels like a spy thing, a spy thriller.
Mm-hmm. I just love the tension that was built up and everything with Luthen and just how he says Andor, Cassian Andor. Like, I just love the guy's accent. It's just so good. And it just feels like he's this rough and tough dude that's just trying to take it to the Empire. And it's just, you can see, like, this is the spark of the rebellion. This is one of the first agents. We know that Cassian Andor was a Fulcrum agent. I'm pretty sure he was a Fulcrum similar to what Ahsoka was. He was going out Fulcrum would basically recruit new agents for the Rebel Alliance. So we're seeing all that, but I liked how dynamic that scene was. Oh my gosh, and the fact that he put a blaster to that guy's head. Like he was gonna blow Milton, he was gonna blow this guy's head off. Like I've never seen anything like that in Star Wars. Like with somebody just up, like it felt like it was almost like a gangster movie for a minute there. I was like, damn, like they're going there with this freaking series.
I mean, look, I haven't watched the clip yet, so my feedback is going to be very, very short when it comes to actual footage. What you just talked about, that's not surprising to me, just because we got that. Well, we got that within the first 5 minutes of
Yeah.
Rogue One when he killed that spy. Like everyone, I remember when everyone reviewed that movie and watched it, they said like, man, like that they were surprised to see a good guy execute someone just because.
Yep.
And then when you think about it, it's like, yeah, well, this is war. This is spy thriller. Guys got to do some bad stuff to survive. And Andor, I think, from my understanding, you're going to see him do probably a lot of bad stuff in this show. He's not the Andor that we know him of yet. So you're going to see him do some grimy stuff. I guarantee you that. And I love that. I mean, I think Star Wars, this might be a good segue for Star Wars to potentially do a hard PG-13. Maybe a rated R if they wanted to get away with it. I mean, you don't need the sex and cursing, but like violence wise, they can get a unrated R Star Wars. Maybe this is a good way to show how fans are able to handle something more mature in that genre.
It is something else, and I liked how kinetic that scene was with the action, Ben, because you see, like, I couldn't even really get my head around what practically was happening with those like things on chains that were like somebody shot one, then it like fell, and then they just like more kept coming, and it was just like it was like an extra added element that kept me more engaged with the action sequence. So if they can manage to, just besides the usual of like, oh, there's a guy behind a barricade shooting at another guy behind a barricade. Like we've seen that a million times in every action movie. But the fact that Tony Gilroy and everybody involved, like, we're like, how can we make this scene different? Oh, let's add these weird like engine things hanging from chains that are going to just randomly drop down and like hit people in the head. So you don't know what the heck is happening. And it has you just guessing and more in suspense, I should say. What'd you think about those things? Because that stood out to me, man.
Yeah, I mean that stood out to me too. Just because I thought it was shot interestingly, I guess you could say that, if that was a word. I actually rewound it a little bit just to check it out because it was so unique watching it. It was so fast paced and yeah, like you said, it just the way they shot it. It was shot. You normally don't see like shooting sequences shot that way, whether it be like in any type of movie, especially Star Wars. Star Wars, a lot of Star Wars' shooting is just like the back and forth type shooting. So it was cool getting it. It was cool getting it the way they shot it there, and then also Milton, just to like throw on your point, like yeah, like I think this type of the tone of a show, like it sets up a potential for more serious type stories, more PG-13s or Rs or like things like that. It could potentially set up some of those scenarios where you're getting a more serious type of thing. Like to me, I think like a serious type show, they would have to do like more of a serious tone to it, be like something in the Old Republic era, like that. Like to me, give me like House of the Dragons tone in an Old Republic era, and I'm good. Like do something like
Ooh.
that. Just because, like, why not? Like my thing is with fans or with audiences and like the way you view it is like, if you're a company, like, I just feel like that's an untapped demographic you can get into, like the more serious side of things of Star Wars, and it's like at some point, like, why not break that ground? Like that's such like a like that type of television, in my opinion, specifically television, is a prime example of something that can work. Like, give us a weekly, like 10-episode, serious House of the Dragon-esque Old Republic show. Boom. Like, there you go. because like I feel like we're gonna get these serious tones in this show in Andor or Andor as that guy says it.
Cassian Andor.
Like yeah, Cassian Andor. As he says it. But I think we're gonna get those serious tones. And I mean, we've already had like little bits of information, like different people, like from like Bespin Bulletin and other Star Wars reports saying like they've hearing things like the first few episodes, like you have some slow parts to them because it's like, the build up. It's more of more of kind of like an adult type of feel to it, like where it's more serious. So like, to me, that's a good sign. Like, to me, that's a good sign versus like just expecting like, fun loving, like don't get me wrong, Mandalorian has some like serious moments in it, but it's fun loving Star Wars. Like, it's fun loving Star Wars. This show does not feel like the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Joel Davis and me in our conversation, we were talking about some of this, and he basically said this is Star Wars for adults. Yeah, I don't think a lot of the young, I mean, when I say young, like the 7-year-olds are really going to get a lot out of this show. I mean, they could, but it's going to be more geared for like, okay, there's not going to be lightsabers that we know of. It's going to be very dramatic, very mature with the subject matter, with the themes, right? A lot of just like this big takeover of government and all that sort of thing. Speaking of which, this just dawned on me. New adversaries. I mean, we've seen them. We weren't sure who they were, but I think Cassian mentioned something about corpos. So it was quite interesting seeing the adversaries not being stormtroopers or part of the Imperials. I'm not sure what planet this is on, but I'm very curious to see how they vilify this other organization and how they do fit in. Are they integrated into the Empire? Do they, beckon to the Empire? I definitely like the appearance of their outfits. It looks like a really cool costume design with the red on the edges there. But I thought that was neat for sure because when we see like the good guys, they're usually shooting the stormtroopers that have masks. No, we're seeing them like literally killing other humans now. So again, another thing where this is more adult than anything Star Wars before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like I noticed that as well with them, and I think my take on them are that group would probably be it has to be like some type of an imperial. I would say like an imperial like supporter group. You get those like extreme groups like supporting certain parts of the government. I feel like maybe it's gonna end up being something like that.
Mm-hmm. As far as clips, I just realized we got another clip. This wasn't really around the internet too much, but thanks to the people over at StarWarsNewsNet.com that aggregate a lot of the news for every week. I go there to get a lot of our stories. They actually caught that there is a clip on Good Morning America. It's probably like a 30-second clip, but it is Cassian Andor speaking to, I don't know if he's just a generic resistance guy or if he is part of the Rebel Alliance. But he's getting pretty much in this guy's face, just saying I'm not going to be intimidated. But what stood out for me was there's this character, this towering alien, which was pretty cool. And just the way he spoke, he's all practical. And this just brings me back to the fact when we first got that behind the scenes at the Disney Investor Day with Neil Scanlon's prop department for the puppets, and like he is the guy who was involved with Force Awakens, Rogue One. I don't know who's really technically involved with Mando and Boba Fett, but we're getting those movie grade quality animatronics and aliens in a Star Wars series, which is something pretty cool. So not a very big clip that gives me much to break down. I'm just looking at it more for like a visual perspective. So I don't think there's going to be as much CGI in this series. It's going to be more or less grounded in realism. I mean, just by the environments, it's very Star Wars. It's that rebellion era. Everything's lived in, rusted, chalked up a little bit. So I don't know if you've seen this one, Ben, because I posted it not too long ago in the show notes there, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I have it just up on my phone, muted right now. Yeah, like you said, it's more, to me, it looks more just like the visual than anything, honestly. just looking over it, and like you said, just the creatures, the aliens, and my thing, like you said, I think we mentioned it even when we were breaking down the action sequence. Like, I feel like there's a really practical feel to this show more than even what we've gotten from the other Disney Plus shows potentially. So, and I think that makes sense though, considering how Tony Gilroy was involved with Rogue One, and just like the way he's talked about making this show. So like, this is just like another example of that, like more like practical effect side of Star Wars that we need, I think, because like to me, Star Wars is at its best when it has a blend, a lot of practical with some of the CGI versus a lot of CGI and barely any practical.
Yeah, and now at this point, we're gonna just talk more about Andor, just in a free facet kind of way, previewing it as I said off the top. But you got to also put it into perspective about how long did season 1 take? Because I remember we were like sitting there thinking like, this thing is still in production like 2 years later. Like, what are they doing over there? Like, how intricate are these sets? And we found out from the mouth of Tony Gilroy in this interview and this thing saying, like, no, these are like all practical sets. This is basically movie making, but on a much larger, like a 12 episode scale, right? Everything is about scale for him and just making sure that it looks like it's a movie and it looks like it's a place that has been lived in and all that. So, there's only 2 seasons. I don't know how long season 2 is going to take to make. I guess they're probably shooting at right now, maybe, or something. But yeah, it's the scope of this thing is it's looking the way it does because they spent the amount of time on it that they did.
Look, I'm kind of glad I haven't watched anything, just because I was thinking about this earlier today. I think this will be probably the best Star Wars show as far, and I know we're just like more of a general conversation. I'm glad I haven't seen anything because I don't want to know nothing. Like, yes, I know how it ends with Rogue One, but I'm curious to see how they're going to build this show up and like take it in 2 seasons. So overall, my thoughts about this particular show, and even with the practical effects and the production and everything, seems like Tony Gilroy is the perfect guy for this property because he cares for it, not like a fan. He's like, no, I want to take care of this particular story, make it the best that we can because we already have one piece of it out there that everyone loved. But I think Star Wars, mainly Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna, or their guys probably taking their sweet old time with this, and that's totally fine. I'd rather you take your time, put the extra effort in, tell the right story so the fans can say, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what's best for the show. So I'm glad I haven't watched none of these clips. So I want to go into it fresh. Normally I'm not like that, but for some reason I want to with this show.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys had any experience with this. And again, Joel Davis, guest on last week's show, was saying this is probably going to be the dark horse of the Star Wars series and movies because I think a lot of people aren't ready. Even yesterday, I don't know if any of you have had an experience with your casual Star Wars fan friends. Like, oh yeah, tell my coworker, oh yeah, we talk about the Marvel shows, the Star Wars shows. He likes all that stuff. But I was like, oh yeah, the Andor show, and he's like, the what? I was like, I had to go through like a 2 or 3 minute explanation of who and what Andor was. And I was like, yeah, Rogue One, he's the guy that basically was the rebel spy and all that stuff and then I was like, oh, the guy with the droid. And then he's like, let me look this up. And then he was like, oh, that guy. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are just not even thinking that this thing is on the verge of coming out or who the heck this guy even is. And I even told him, I was like, yeah, it wouldn't be my first choice for like to naming a Star Wars show or to have a character based on. Like, I think it would have been better maybe to be like some kind of catchier phrase relating to the rebellion or something, because in the end, it will be more of a lesser show about the rebellion, especially since Mon Mothma is going to be one of the major characters and all that. It's not just him. But have you guys had an experience like I had where it's just like, you just feel like people aren't ready or they're not really sure what this even is? It's not like we all know who Obi-Wan is. We all know who Boba Fett is. We all fell in love with the Mandalorian because a lot of us just thought he looked cool. But this is the first series that I've seen where people are like, kind of just like not ready for it, I guess I could say.
Yeah, I mean, with this show, I think that would, it's naturally was going to happen when you name it Andor. I think, to me, I've said it from the beginning, they should have named it, like you mentioned, something, the Rebellion, something. Like, I remember that big write up in Entertainment Weekly or whoever it was. It was like the Rebellion is on Disney Plus, and it had the big write up about this show. Like, why not? Why not name it The Rebellion Rises or The Rebellion something, like
Yeah.
something or another? Like they could have easily done that, and people would have been like, "Oh," but when you name it Andor, you're like, "Okay, who and what and where?" Like for example, with me, I've had a couple instances with this. So my one uncle, he's in his 50s, and he watches all the Star Wars stuff, but he's not like us. He's like, he's a fan. He knows the main stuff. He knows the characters. He watches the shows, but he doesn't like know the like like he couldn't tell you the name of any of the characters in Rogue One other than Darth Vader, basically, or Tarkin or Leia. Like he's very general. And when I talked about this show to him over, at my cookout, the cookout we had with my family for my birthday, he was like, now which character is that? It was like a similar reaction to your coworker. He was like, which character is that? I said, it's the guy from Rogue One. The lead guy, and he's like which one? And I had to do the same thing as you. I had to pull up a picture of Diego Luna. I was like, this guy. He's like, oh yeah, that guy. I was like, well, this is what this show's about. Is him and his backstory, and the funniest part is like, so I had that interaction with him, and then it's hilarious. My of all things, like I always joke around, my grandma's always one of my litmus tests for like general Star Wars audiences, because she keeps up with all this stuff. And I mean, God, she watches our podcast sometimes. It's hilarious on her smart TV. But she when I talked to her about the show, she was like, oh, that's the Rogue One guy, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, that is. Like, she actually knew who it was when she saw the trailers. She was like, oh yeah, that's the Rogue One guy. I was like, yeah, no, this takes place beforehand though, that movie. And so it's just more of a, I don't know, it just, to me, when it comes to Star Wars, like, I think they misstepped on the title, because at first, when my grandma, like, for example, with her, when I told her the title, she's like, wait, who? And as soon as I said the guy from Rogue One, she clicked. She was like, oh yeah, that guy. Like, she had a general idea. But like, I feel like with people, when you name it Andor, it's not as catchy. It's not as big as Obi-Wan. The Mandalorian is solidified because it's an incredible show. It like revolutionized. It's a hit show. So like this show with Andor, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like the general audience is gonna. They may get surprised by its quality, but they may go into it going, okay, oh, Star Wars is on Disney Plus. Let me check it out.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing a decent job of promoting. I feel like they've been putting TV spots. The cast have been going around giving interviews. I mean, they're there probably at D23, I would imagine. But it's I think it's gonna just like be like any other streaming service. I think they're gonna show those first 3 episodes, and then the word of mouth is gonna get on. Be like, oh my gosh, you've never seen this kind of Star Wars story before. Like, the action is unreal, the espionage. Think of like James Bond with Star Wars, and people are going to be sold on that. They're going to watch him, and then we're going to see it. We're going to see all the stuff week to week to week, all the excitement, the anticipation, and it probably was a better plan for them to push it out, because I mean, all my timeline is either Rings of Power, is a lot of Rings of Power, House of Dragon right now, She-Hulk. There's just so much stuff coming out. I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to get a lot of the fans telling the other fans out there to just go ahead and check it out for themselves. I'm telling you, it's awesome,
So for me, like, I think, first of all, I didn't have this experience like you guys had when it comes to this show, because I haven't really talked about the show with a lot of my friends. I do agree regarding this title. It is kind of just generic. However, because if you're an inside Star Wars fan, it makes sense for the title. you're some rando stranger who likes Star Wars on, the down low, you're not gonna know it. So
Oh
I
yeah.
completely get how this title needs to be reworked. It's going to be more mainstreamed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. So, what are some things you guys want to see from this show? I know it's asking a lot. Like, we shouldn't ask necessarily like what we want to see. Let the creators do what they want to do. But let's just have fun being Star Wars fans. What do you want to see coming out of this, Ben? For
I'll
season
keep it.
one, at
Oh,
least. Season
sorry,
Um,
go
one.
ahead.
I would say we can just kind of go around the table talking about it. Just list some things here and there and go back and forth. For me, I would say what I would really like to see, since it's such a there's so many episodes. Ideally, each episode is longer than 22 minutes, for starters. But like in terms of content, I just hope we get a good story, a good story that makes sense, a good story that hooks people. Like the thing is, of course, we mentioned about how we like the idea of an adult Star Wars show and stuff like that. But also, there is that fine line of you don't want to be too serious where it's super slow, like super super slow, because we don't want to get halfway through the season and 5 out of 6 episodes are like, man, we're really dragging here. So like,
Uh,
hopefully, like I hope the action lives up to the expectations of the show.
mm-hmm. Yeah, as far as me, I want the storytelling to really dive into the politics of the Empire. We've seen it a little bit, right? We've seen a lot in Obi-Wan how the Empire is treating its citizens like in the streets, or just Vader's dragging people out, just using them as bait to lure Obi-Wan, and how they're integrated with society a little bit. But seeing first contact, maybe with a civilization, seeing the Empire, like we see those shots of the Phase 2 clones, early on in the Empires, from the Bad Batch, still with the Phase 2s. Uh, how do people that live on their own respond to that in live action? We've seen a bit of that with Star Wars Rebels, I think, and stuff like that. But I guess more or less just like seeing like live action versions of that happening is going to be something to see. And seeing again Saul Guerrero, I want to really see the reason why he becomes so crazy. I know Mon Mothma and Rebels is really having an out for him, like really just grinding his gears and seeing all that happening. I want to see like the lead up to that. Yeah, we see him Jedi Fallen Order. Let's see where he is now. Let's see how I want to see him do some heinous stuff that we've read about in some of the books. And same thing with Cassian. I want to see how ruthless Cassian is. If he killed somebody out of cold blood, that at that point, where would he be like years before that? Like maybe he was even worse. So that's kind of my opening salvo of what I would expect. I'll throw it over to you, Milton.
I'm gonna just keep it real. This show better be good. That's what I want. Like seriously, like I don't want it to be an inconsistent show up and down. It needs to be consistent. Like that's my biggest thing. If it's consistent and tells a good story, locked in. If it's inconsistent or just inconsistent in general, how you want to word that, I'm going to be annoyed, and you'll hear about it in our reviews. So hopefully it's just consistent and it's a great story and it's fluid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as far as characters that haven't been officially announced, who would you like to maybe see in this one? Because there's a lot of possibilities, both legends as well as characters we already know and love.
I honestly don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. I mean, like it's
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know. I just know the key players. Obviously Andor, Saw, Mon Mothma. I mean, those are the ones I want to care about more. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna be characters that are new, sprinkled in that are gonna help push along the story. But I mean, will we see Gale and Urso? I don't know.
Ooh.
Will we see a peak of director Krennic?
Oh,
I
I
don't
think we'll
know.
have to
I mean,
see.
we're not going to see any heavy hitters. Let's be real here, unless it's like a surprise. But
Season
um,
2,
no, I mean,
maybe.
I don't think we're going to see any type of like Vader or Emperor Palpatine or nothing like that, unless it's like a hologram of
Mm.
like them giving a speech or whatever. But I don't see any heavy hitters being in in this show. I
I
just
would
see them
say, yeah.
focusing on like just the Andor characters.
Yes, for season one, I think they're gonna like really try to build up a lot with Cassian on that world because we got that synopsis out of one of these reports where Tony Gilroy was just laid it all out. He's like, season one, flashbacks, and we're on one planet. Season two, it's like 1 year for every 3 episodes or something like that. So I think in season two, we could even get into like some Rebels crossovers. But again, I just want this discussion to mainly be on season one. I'm happy enough having Saw. I would like to see Bail Organa, especially now having watched Obi-Wan Kenobi. I feel like you can't have Mon Mothma without Bail, and I could see them having a scene with like them being in the Senate and like him talking about politics happening on Alderaan, like while he's on Coruscant. Like that would be some really cool stuff. I would like to see Masamita. He is basically the voice of the Empire to a certain degree. I don't think they got Ian McDermott, and we watched the behind the scenes for Obi-Wan. I don't think they got Ian McDermott to be at that studio just to do the one scene in Obi-Wan. I feel like we could actually see just as much or maybe even more of him in one of the scenes, just to give people an idea, like, where is the Emperor? Why isn't he present? And they could, not everybody's on the up and up with the canon, what's happening, but maybe they could visually show us, like, oh yeah, Emperor's just chilling in his like place in the works with the cool window that we keep seeing in the Star Wars comics there. So there's a lot of things like that. I don't know. What about you, Ben?
I would say when it comes to the characters, you have your potential Rogue One type cameos. You have your Galen Erso potential. You have your maybe credential. You have characters like that could possibly show up. And then in terms of more like heavier hitting guys, I feel like when it comes to Cassian, so like Cassian, for example, he's going to be doing some spy type stuff. I think there's a really good possibility we could get like, okay, imagine this, like a spy thing happening, him sneaking around a corner, watching Harkin on a hologram talking to Imperial officers, like something like that. Like, I feel like we could get like a Tarkin in the series by almost you know what I'm saying? Like through Cassian's eyes, like looking around a corner, seeing something happening, seeing a hologram, running, leaving with the information, that type of deal. Like I think we could get something like that for some of those heavy hitting characters. And then like the Emperor, like you said, I don't think you bring Ian McDermott in just to do that one little tidbit in Kenobi, because for one, that's a lot of money. For two, let's be real, Ian McDermott is like 75, 76, 77 years old. He's up there in age. So like, how many times is he going to really want to fly out to do that? Like, so like, I think there's maybe a chance they recorded scenes for the Emperor for this show while they were filming Kenobi. And then, some other heavier hitters. I think there's a chance. Now here's a wild card one actually for you guys.
All right, I'm ready for it.
If we get Jimmy Smits, hey, you have his wife and you have Leia casted. What if Mon Mothma goes to check in on Jimmy and his wife or something or another to tell, update him on something, or maybe even just does a hologram call, and you have actually young Leia in the series, like Vivian, whatever her name is, popping in just as a like side cameo or something, like as a little little scene. Like I think there's a chance for something like that, even just because this is kind of, I think we kind of even mentioned it when we were talking Kenobi, weeks ago when we were reviewing the show. Like this is kind of like the Kenobi Andor era, like the Kenobi Andor verse timeline era, like So I think there's a chance we could get the actress that played Leia, Vivian, whatever her last name was, Vivian. I think there's a chance we can maybe get her with Jimmy Smits' Bail Organa, and then whoever the wife is. I think there's a chance for that, of them potentially conversing with Mon Mothma about something more of just like a check-in, like, hey, how's the secret rebellion stuff going or something? And we actually get a pop-up, because to me, okay, like not to like on like cameos too much, but like the way Disney is with things. Look at Marvel. Marvel's cameo heavy. Star Wars has turned into a lot of cameos. Look at Mando. Like, what better way to do a cameo than bring in Bale, his kid, his wife, and Leia as just a little tiny cameo, just to know, you're in the same timeline as Kenobi.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I don't know. That's a 5 year difference of time. So
That'd be
I
a
don't
season
know.
two thing, maybe.
Maybe a season 2 thing. But for Leia, for Vivian, I think they would have to age her up or something. Well, they would have to age her up. That's 5 years,
Yeah, that's
and it
true.
should be like a lot more. I don't know if that would work.
Oh yeah,
but,
that's true.
But here's another one. We got Osei Jackson. And they even say this in a documentary of Obi-Wan about how he is like one of the pioneers of the rebellion, and Obi-Wan even tells him like something. I forget what he tells him in the show, but he's like something about like start the movement or continue what you're doing. Just keep doing it. What happens if he's one of like the commanders that's there with what's his face, the guy that's talking to Andor in that clip we were talking about? What if he's one of the officers? And I could see like that nice like little transition to like having a mini universe built in Star Wars, right? And down the line having other characters floating in and out would be kind of cool. Because it's 5 years after,
For sure.
so
I mean,
you'd have more structure at that point.
oh yeah, you have those possibilities. One really wild card. Okay, like we're gonna go really wild card out there. So we've talked about like our general ones, like your cameos. You think maybe Galen, maybe your Imperial people, maybe your Rebellion people. Here's a really wild card one. What if they have Ahsoka checking in as Fulcrum with the Rebellion
Ooh.
about something? Like Cassian's in on a meeting, and you just get a little Ahsoka Fulcrum check in. Like there's a possibility. I mean, maybe
Man,
just to like just. I mean, it fits the timeline, so it's not just a thrown-in cameo, Like, she is Fulcrum during this period.
No, that's true, but I could just see the internet now. I could just see the internet
I
kind
don't
of
think
like,
so.
oh, you're gonna put Ahsoka in this thing too? You know what I mean? I can
Oh,
see
yeah,
the
that's
reaction
true.
now. People are gonna be like, oh, come on now. But I mean, it's not Dave Filoni doing this one, so if it was Dave Filoni,
True.
it probably would happen. But we'll see. We'll see. But
Yeah,
wrapping it up, go ahead.
Just to throw in there, I think actually, like, to be realistic with it, like with Tony Gilroy, with how he is, like, I would say more, not to say Dave Filoni's not serious, but more serious of like a tone of filmmaking. I think the most realistic possibility of us getting cameos are people that came from Rogue One, if I had to guess. Like, I think, you get
Ooh.
your Tarkin. I think you get your Tarkin,
Bodhi Rook.
your Krennic, maybe. Yeah, Bodhi. Like, I think you could get actually part of that crew. Actually, that's a very good idea there. Like, I think you could get those type of crew members. And now the real question is, no, I guess this is the Andor show, so yeah. But yeah, I think there's a chance for the whole. I really think there's a chance for the Galen Urso thing. I think so, just because it's spying. Like maybe Cassian, I don't know, spies on a meeting or him getting transported on a ship or something, like something along those lines.
It'd be neat. I mean, let's say they have a scene or two with Galen and with director Orson Krennic. For those that haven't read the Star Wars Catalyst book, it would give them more backstory to make that death of him even like worse. You know what I mean? What a good prequel does, it adds on the backstory to get you more attached to the character. So it leads exactly why they're doing it for Andor, to make his character more fleshed out, more evolved. So, yeah, final thoughts on everything Andor. Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up for this week.
I just hope the show's good. Like, it's all I care about, dude. Like, I'm just at this point. I mean, the show's already shot, so I mean, it just better be fire. So that's all I gotta say. Because if not, we're going to talk about it and just say how it is.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
Oh yeah, it definitely it should be. Like I agree with you, Milton. Like at the end of the day, we can get hyped up about it. We can get our expectations sky high. But we got to make sure they're at least somewhat met because we just want to have a good show, a good, exciting, enticing show. Whether it be the story, the action, the characters, the music. I feel like the music is something that's going to be very interesting to see how it's played out. Um, and yeah, just the overall tone of the show, I think, is going to be a really interesting take on Star Wars. Also, in my opinion, here's another thing, guys. So we're all talking about how we think it's a good idea for like a more of a serious Star Wars project, etc. But this is an overall litmus test for the very general audience, like our parents, like our uncles, grandmas, coworkers, whatever. If they even if even a serious type of a Star Wars show is even something that would hit with the general audience, because we talk about like say House of the Dragon, for example. That's a serious show, but we know that's a serious franchise. Like Star Wars has such history. I mean, like I said, look at The Mandalorian. Like it's much more lighthearted than what we're projecting maybe with Andor. So to my thing is, if Andor is serious, we may like it a lot, but it's going to be very interesting just to see the general audience's reaction. That's just like the very normie, casual Star Wars fan. If this is actually something that even hits with them, because if it's not, then the whole idea of serious Star Wars, like really serious Star Wars filmmaking, is pretty much out the window.
Yeah, it could really go either way. So I mean, yeah, this is good testing grounds, right? It's Stormtroopers. It's everything the OG fans love, right? It's in that in between era with everything that they all know, and even the prequel. Maybe we'll see some prequel references in there for those of us that grew up in the '90s and the early 2000s.
Oh,
So there's a good in between.
I just also want to throw in. I know I just talked a lot, but I do want to throw in one more quick potential cameo type thing. Now that I think about it, so we all know that Cassian like grew up in the Separatist era. Like his parents were Separatists and that sort. What if like in a flashback or something we get some like straight up like clone troopers from like Attack of the Clones or something? Like something like I think there's a chance we could get those in a flashback
Ooh.
because his parents are Separatists. Because like if he's talking, because my thing with Cassian is to like push his character forward. Something probably has to happen to his. Why not flashback and we see something? What if the Republic? What if the Republic? Like we get clone troopers like accidentally like blowing up a building or something wherever his parents are, like, and we actually see like a clone squadron. Like I think there's a chance we actually see clone troopers because didn't we see the clone gunship? So there's a chance of that potentially being in a flashback where we actually see those old clone troopers.
There's already been a precedent. I mean, they showed us not the phase ones, but they showed us the phase two clones marching down the street in a very let's say like a very Nazi-ish way. I mean, they're just like marching through the streets in these lines. It's just very intimidating. So I think there's a good chance that this show is going to paint the Republic in a very different eye. From the point of view of a separatist, like the Republic is going to look evil. You're going to see the clones maybe doing some things that we never expected. Kind of the same way what we've seen Rogue One, we've seen the Rebels. Wait, Rebels are just killing people, regular people like that. Like, what the hell is going on? So I think there's a way where people are gonna start, being like, yeah, the Republic is not good for this planet. This is why. So we're gonna get that, and Star Wars has been telling a lot more gray stories lately. As you keep mentioning, House of Dragons, Game of Thrones franchise does that excellently, skirting the line between what's really good and what's really bad, or maybe we're all just a little bit of good and a little bit of bad combined, and in certain circumstances bring out the worst or the best in us. So, yeah, I mean that's Andor. We got less than 2 weeks. It's like a week and a half as of recording this on Friday, September 9th. But we won't have to wait long for more Star Wars news, as we will be talking about more next week. Hopefully we have a bunch of cool stuff that we'd even talk about, and hopefully it's not just confirmations of everything we talked about tonight. I would assume that there would be a trailer at the very least. Maybe we'll be talking about some of those trailers that never got to the public from Celebration. I want to thank you guys for coming back, Milton, for Ben. Ben, tell us where they can find you and what you'll be talking about. Although I already know what you and Milton will be chatting about this weekend, so that's not much of a surprise.
Yeah. For me, you can find me at Real Ben Maynard on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, it's pretty much just me talking the NFL a lot right now because it's the kickoff of the NFL weekend, and then of course Star Wars chatter. And then on Instagram, you can follow me there at Real Ben Maynard. I just post my workouts and just kind of documenting my fitness journey of working toward getting shredded again. So yeah, you can find me there. And how about you, Milton?
You can find me on Twitter at MiltonWeber7 or Instagram at Milton7Weber. Again, on Twitter, usually just some sports stuff. Instagram is more of my fitness stuff. I'll post there about fitness or just funny memes throughout my stories. But no, this weekend's just going to be about football, college football tomorrow, NFL on Sunday, and honestly catching up on sleep because I have one hell of a week of work. So it's just been crazy.
All right. As for me, I'm going to just be uploading my usual Star Wars comics. I think we have Bounty Hunters issue 28 or 27 coming out, as well as the final issue of the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries, which I've really been liking a lot. Me and Joel talked quite a bit about that issue, number 4, last week. So there you go. As far as for everything, keeping an eye on youtube.com Starrapter for the latest on everything Star Wars. And you can go ahead and watch these videos if you're listening on YouTube, and you can listen to us if you're watching on YouTube. You can listen to us, just search Outer Rim Transmission on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Store, all that good stuff. So that was going to do it for Outer Rim Transmission number 74. We'll see you guys next week. For Milton, for Ben, for Starrapter, thank you for watching. May the Force be with you in transmission.